Hey, it's Yanez, and you're listening to and or watching another episode of Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. We're very grateful to our primary sponsor, the Saxenian Family, who will be our primary sponsor for the remainder of the regular season into the American Athletic Conference Tournament. We are on the heels of the number one Houston Cougars' eighth win of the season. They're a perfect 8-0 after traveling up to Fort Worth and playing St. Mary's in the Battleground 2K22 event, and it was another defensive battle. I think something about Houston and playing on Saturdays. I guess those are the Saturday games where they play those defensive battles. But the Gales, it was an interesting game. Final score: Houston comes out victorious, 53-48. From the Houston perspective, Jawan Roberts led the team in scoring. He had 15 points. He was 7 of 11 on shooting. He had 8 total rebounds. And really, in this game, I think we'll start right there because Houston went to Roberts. It seemed like every time they needed a go-to basket, they went to him on the post. And our post-game, Kelvin Sampson talked about Jawan Roberts, and when they asked him what difference he had seen in Jawan Roberts, he said, it's just his turn. He said, same like Fabian White, same like a lot of other bigs before him, a lot of players before him. He just needed to wait his turn, and now this season is that time for Jawan Roberts. But joining me, as always, my co-host Kris Gardner of the Houston Rama Review. Kris, as always, thank you for allowing us to use your platform for Let's Rage Coogs. Let's Rage Coogs After Dark. Dayon Dunlap. Dayon, I still can't say thank you 100 times for being able to join me on the show on Wednesday. That we did it. And then Justin Barbosa. Kris and Justin, your guys' names are blocked off from sponsors row, but Justin Barbosa joining me here as well. I'll go around to Kris. I'll toss it over to you first. Let's stick with Jawan Roberts, and then after that, the biggest thing that stood out to you from Calvin Sampson's post-game quote.
Well, Juan came through. Honestly, I think he should have got more looks down on the block. He was 7 for 11 from the floor. Of the 4 Cougs who took double-digit shots, he was the only one who made 50% or better from the floor. Sasser 4 for 12, Shed 2 for 12, Jamal Mark 3 for 10, Jawan Roberts 7 for 11. And Jawan was 0 for 9 from 2. Okay? So that means he missed his twos. Credit to Logan Johnson's defense for some of that. Some of the shots rolled out. But when Jawan is not making shots like that, I want to see them go down to the post more. Roberts had an advantage on the block. We don't have that often. Don't say that often this season. But when he has an advantage, go to him more. And the Cougs won. It wasn't pretty. It was ugly, sloppy. We got post-game comments from Coach Sampson. 2 defensive teams, so don't expect a high-scoring offensive game. That's what we saw. But guards, he rebound better. You see that. But one comment that I want to say, if we may not have the post-game clip, but Coach Sampson said he needs to work on getting some mud in the blood of Jarris Walker. Basically, that means Jarris, still a freshman, let's be clear on that, he's got to play tougher consistently because it's too many games in these first 8 so far. He's just not tough enough on a consistent basis to match his natural skill set.
Dayon, I'll toss it over to you for second, and then Justin, you'll be third. Now, what stood out to you overall from this game versus Houston? We do need to do injury note in regards to Marcus Sasser, who did not finish the game after getting taken out. Calvin Sampson post game said that he had his shoulder pop out and then pop back in, which sounds incredibly painful. But Calvin Sampson said that he doesn't expect it to be a long-term issue for Marcus Sasser. I had another person close to the program also confirm that they don't expect that to be a big deal. So good news for the Cougars in that regard. It looks like Marcus Sasser avoided something serious, as I lose one of my AirPod or one of the things in my ears. But good news in that aspect. Obviously, he didn't finish the game, but Houston doesn't expect that to be a long-term issue for Marcus Sasser.
Yeah, one of my takeaways was, like Kris said, when J1 has had the advantage on the block, he's capitalized on that. And but not only that, again, Houston ability to win quote unquote ugly games when they don't shoot the ball well. I think that's something that will trends in the right direction for them going forward. I think, especially when they go on the road games. I know Killer Sampson always said all road games are street fights. Although this was a neutral site game, it's the type of game that you will face mostly when you're on the road or sometimes when you're at home. We saw them play a game like this at home against Kent State. And so I think their ability to win these type games when you don't shoot the ball particularly well, and it shows your ability to really hone in on the defense and now allow teams to score. And so that was one of the things that really stood out to me. And also, Marcus, I really think he's really seeing the floor well. I think whenever he's initiating the offense, he really, really sees the floor well from a point guard's perspective. And I think that bodes well for his team as well, because he moves the ball in transition. And of course, we know what Jamal Shedd does, but when Marcus has it, all eyes is on him. And when he moves the ball like that, sometimes it creates easy buckets inside for J1 when they don't go to him on the block. And so I think overall, this team just finds a way to win. I mean, they're not always going to shoot the ball well, and I don't know if they're particularly a good shooting team. I think it's going to be more often than not where they're not shooting in above 60, 70%, but they have one or two players who have good nights and they win the game. And so just another hard-fought game, another culture win for Houston. Grit, winning, battling. And although St. Mary's kept it close, but Houston never allowed them to tie the game up or take a lead.
Justin, you're off the head. Anything that stood out to you from this game following Houston's victory?
Yeah, to me, it was just their defense all night long. Although they did give up a few open threes throughout the night, but really just a hustle on defense, able to get the loose balls and turnovers, especially at the end of the half where they went on that 9-0 run. But that's really what carried them tonight. Didn't really have it mostly offensively. We're just mainly Juwan Roberts in the post-up. I mean, that's probably one of the best games I've seen him this season, just confident up there in the post, using that left hook, get some baskets, and he really stepped up big tonight.
On that note, I don't know how much people can hear in the background. There's some salsa music, and I think it's so funny that the PA announcer called Marcus Sasser what is it, saucer? Like a flying saucer.
Repeatedly, saucer a lot.
There's the salsa music. We're feeling salty after this win, Kris. But I do want to take this opportunity to remind everyone you are watching Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. We are extremely grateful to the Saxenian Family for being able to not only commit to helping us out for the remainder of the regular season, the men's basketball season, and into the American Athletic Conference tournament, but also we'd like to give out a shout out to I said it last Let's Reach Coogs, and I'm gonna say it again. It is now sponsor row, and it is officially a full sponsor row because we have no more space. We're gonna have to start making it sponsor screen, which is making a full square. But obviously, we do want to give a shout out to our other sponsors, starting with Hoop and Holler, the Houston Cougars Micro Collective. They're the entity behind those Star Pizza commercials, which brings me to our second sponsor for today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs, Star Pizza, Houston's best pizza since 1976, with multiple locations across the Houston area. If you're ever in need for some pizza, make sure that it is Star Pizza. They're open for lunch. And like I said, they put out those great commercials with Zach Gav, Houston's best pizza since 1976. Also, big shout out to BB's, the home of Tex Orleans Cooking. Be sure to follow them on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at BB's Tex Orleans. That's at BBS Tex Orleans on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Big shout outs to them. And Justin, I do want to give a big shout out to you because this is a family affair. Big shout out to Challenge Office Products for being their debut on sponsor for Let's Rage Coogs. Challenge Office Products, be sure to contact them at 713-644-4007. And last but not least, I do want to give a shout out to the Fritz Kennel. They are a family owned and operated business that specializes in dog and cat boarding, daycare, and bathing. The Fritz Kennel, if you're out of town and you need a home for your fur friend, make sure that it is our guys at the Fritz Kennel located at 9513 Uppendale Drive. If you want to contact them, be sure to do so at 713-464-9852. Once again, that's 713-464-9852. And on that note, I'll toss it over to Kelvin Sampson, Jawan Roberts, and Reggie Chaney, who spoke following Houston's 53-48 win over St. Mary's, the #1 Houston Cougars.
There's, when it's a pretty game, Reggie doesn't always get to play a lot. Those other guys can play in a pretty game. Not everybody can play in a mud bath, a blood bath, a mud hole game. Reggie's pretty good playing in mud hole games. There's, these two guys sat on the bench last year behind Josh Carlton and Fabian White, two first-team all-conference guys. So, they played against really good players, and now it's their turn. Reggie could easily start, but I don't think anybody on our team worries about that, especially the coach. But Reggie's toughness, J1's toughness. When teams don't double us, we like to play a little more inside. Now our guards got a lot of good looks tonight. We had a couple of looks there that could have popped it open, and we missed them tonight. Next game, maybe they go in. But on nights when the ball doesn't go in, you've got to have ways that you can find ways to win. We didn't rebound it as well as I'd like tonight. That's going to happen with this team. This is not a great rebounding team. I've had some great rebounding teams over the years. This team is not. We're going to continue to work at it. Hopefully we get better at it, but it's not a great rebounding team, but it is a great defensive team.
What happened with Marcus at the end?
Sublexed his shoulder, kind of popped out, and then went back in.
Forgive me for a medical standpoint, was that, I know what it is, but in terms of concern, is it?
No, he'll be fine.
Right.
Not very.
Nah. But I've heard about the history, how good they were back then. And, for us to be #1 again, I feel like it's a big accomplishment. And just ride the wave, keep improving as a team, keep learning every day, and just keep getting better. And hopefully keep that #1 spot for a long time.
Jawan.
Just playing with a lot of confidence, going into the game knowing that my teammates trust me, believe in me that I'll, make the right plays. And the game is starting to slow down a lot for me now. Playing with a lot more confidence, like I said, and just letting the game come to me. Last year I actually going the game like I'm stepping on glass, just a little nervous a little bit, but I know my role has changed, and I know what I have to bring for this team to be a good team.
Let me go back to Kris Gardner and after you, Kris. Go ahead, Kris.
Reggie, what are your thoughts on what Coach said about you being a guy who can really shine in one bad time?
Those are the games I look forward to because I feel like, I just want to help the team. That's all I care about. Like he said, I don't care about starting it. I just want to help the team where I feel like we need help. So, games like that, I just come in and try to do as best as I can on my toughness.
Kris, go ahead.
Reggie, what did you see in that last block, and what does that mean to make that kind of play in that situation?
I just want to win, so that's that play right there. I just had to go make that block. I made a mistake, so I got to make up for it.
Two more, Andy, and then you want one, Kris? Andy and Kris.
Reggie, can you just talk about what you've seen from the progression of Jawan Roberts over the years that he's been here with the program?
Honestly, I always think that he was always a scorer to me. He always had that. It's just like he said earlier, I just feel like he was a little nervous when I first came, but now he's a lot more comfortable. It's something he could always do.
It's his turn. No different than Fabian's sophomore year when he was behind Devin Davis. Everybody waits their turn in our program. I think it says a lot about our kids' character and also our kids' families. That we've been here going on 9 years, and probably the most amazing statistic about us. Not, if you take out the COVID year, I think we're averaging around 30 wins a year, which is amazing in itself. But in 8 years, in our top 10 players, we've had one kid transfer in 8 years. Think about that.
And once again, that was Kelvin Sampson. He was referring to the starting rotation that was like in the rotation minutes, and Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong. He was referencing Caleb Mills,
Said Alley and said he used to get playing time.
Cedric Alley too. Cedric
Well,
Alley, that was
Coach said in the top 10 rotations, going
Okay,
10 deep,
okay.
Cedric Alley was in 10-man rotation, but 8-man rotation is Caleb Mills.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't catch the full quote there. All right.
but on that particular quote, there's a couple things that stuck out to me too. The one that really made my ears perk the first time I heard is when he was talking about they're not a great rebounding team. And Chris, we were talking about it off air once again. This Houston Cougars team, just overall, did end up getting out rebounded again by St. Mary's, 36-27. And in particular, one of the things that really sticks out about this team is that they're not that good of a defensive rebounding team. They're pretty decent at offensive rebounding, but last time I checked, I can't remember where exactly. I believe they're in the top 20 in the country when it comes to offensive rebound. They fall all the way to 65th, and probably a little outdated after the last few games that have gone when it comes to defensive rebounding. So, like Kelvin said, that's something that hasn't been a strength for them through 8 games early on in this season.
And part of that, I think, is Ramon Walker's absence.
Yeah.
When you look at wing rebounding, Marcus Sasser, I think in the last 2 games, has a total of 1 rebound. That's not good enough. I mean, Coach Sampson talked about it in the last game. He went on Marcus's butt about his defensive rebounding. So he's got to do a better job on that. The guards have to rebound. On this team, the front court can only do so much on the glass. And if they're going against bigger teams up front, then that means the guards got to come crash the boards. And with Ramon Walker being out because he's sick, Ramon's one of those best rebounding guards, and his absence is being felt on the glass. So that is concern. Hopefully when Ramon comes back and gets healthy enough and gets over his illness, he'll help remedy that issue, because we got to really look at it, and I'm going to do a better job keep tracking the boards game by game. Out of these first 8 games, the Cougs have been out rebounded maybe 4 or 5 times. Tonight, losing battle by 9 is, I think, the most this season thus far. So it's a concern. It's a thing that definitely needs to correct, but they're still 8-0.
Yeah, I think definitely Vince Ramon, not only his rebounding, but his energy. He comes off on the court with just a different energy that I think ignites the guards, because they try to meet that energy that he plays with. And so they're definitely missing him. But as far as the rebounding, this is a relatively smaller team than we've had a recent. And so that it's no surprise that the rebounding isn't as good as it's been in the past. The defense is still there, but when you're watching other teams get multiple shots on the offensive end, it's something you're not used to seeing. I mean, definitely not used to seeing it. So guards definitely have to do better to gain rebound. But Ramon is definitely a huge key for that. And J1, I mean, I'm loving his development. I will say, as the competition gets better, he will have to get a counter move, because when it's just scattering port going over that right shoulder, left hook, they're going to sit on that. And the one time that he went away from it, he shot an air ball with his right hand. And he looked back to Oregon, and just more talent, more length. It's harder for him to just back down, drop step, left hand jump hook. And so credit to him to having that confidence to do and be efficient in doing that, and being confident and having the ability to do that. But as the season goes on, people pay attention to the scouting report. He's going to have a counter move.
Justin, your overall takeaways from what you heard there at Calvin Sampson, Joanne Roberts, and Reggie Chimney had to say after the game.
Yeah, Kelvin Sampson pretty much just kept it real as it is. I mean, saying this team's not a good rebounding team, getting out rebounded by 9 tonight. But, yeah, I was pretty shocked to see what the boards tonight. St. Mary's has some pretty clean rebounds tonight, usually from the last couple of years. U of H usually all over the boards, hustling under the basket, fighting for every loose ball. And that's where we really missed Ramon Walker, just a guy that can dive onto the floor and get into it when turnover battle. And I think really the testament was last year, that Wichita State game where we shared that highlight. But I think this team will get better as the year goes with rebounding. I'm sure Coach Sampson will coach them up.
Yeah, that's something that I'm curious on. I'd love to follow Buchanan during the week. I'm curious what the obviously they're going to emphasize that you heard Calvin Sampson say right there in the clip. But I'm curious to see what more he could expand on that. But I do want to focus on what head coach of St. Mary's Randy Bennett had to say after the game because he had a lot of interesting comments, and I'm trying to get that clip to go. I don't know if we'll be able to have the actual official clip. But before we do, I do once again want to give a shout out and remind everyone that you are watching and or listening to Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. Big shout out to the Saxenian Family for being the primary sponsor of the Let's Rage Coogs Houston basketball postgame show. Let's Rage Coogs, the unofficial Houston post-game show all season long, following every game between the Houston Cougars men's basketball team and their opponents. I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor role, beginning with the Fritz Kennel. Once again, they are the family-owned and operated business that specializes in dog and cat boarding, daycare, and bathing. They are located at 9513 Uppendale Drive, and be sure to contact them at 713-464-9852. Do want to give a big shout out making their debut to Challenge Office Products. If you do want to reach out to Challenge Office Products, you want something to get delivered, they are your guys at 713-644-4007. Once again, that's 713-644-4007. Going next into our sponsor role, BB's, the home of Texas Ordnance Cookings with multiple locations across the Houston area. Be sure to follow them at BB's Texas Ordnance on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That's two capital B's, one S, and then Tex Orleans on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. They be sure to follow them across their multiple locations across the Houston area because they did have a very cool name, image, and likeness event where they had multiple players from the men's basketball team at each location. So they are also helping out the team in that aspect of name, image, and likeness. And last but not least, we do want to give a shout out to Hoop and Honor, the Houston Cougars Micro Collective, because they are the entity behind those sack-ass Star Pizza commercials that you guys love so much. If you have seen our shows in the past with Let's Rage Coogs, which brings us to our final sponsor, Star Pizza, which they also have multiple locations across the Houston area. They are Houston's best pizza since 1976. And on that note, I do want to mention what Randy Bennett had to say because he had really high praise for the Houston Cougars. And really, it's interesting because the point got brought up that they're not strangers to playing against the number one team in the past, obviously, because they're in the same conference as Gonzaga, which Gonzaga has been, it seems like they've been the number one team in the country year in and year out the last few seasons. And they asked him a little bit about that. And the thing that he said is that he said the Houston Cougars were much quicker than Gonzaga. And I said Gonzaga is a good defensive team, but he said that's the really thing that stuck out to him when comparing those teams. Houston was much quicker. He said there's a toughness and togetherness about the Houston Cougars that you can really tell that really sticks out for him. And when he was talking about Calvin Sampson, it's funny that he doesn't take any BS from his team, and he does a really good job of being able to hold them accountable, which just right there, when you get recognition from one of your colleagues, which Kris, if you haven't checked out the video, be sure to scroll down. You are on the Houston Roundball Review if you're watching this live, or if you're not, be sure to check it out, the Houston Roundball Review, because Calvin Sampson had high praise for him heading into this game as well. So it's good to see that mutual respect. But just overall right there, Kris, I'll go with you first. What are your thoughts about what Bennett had to say? In particular, I didn't mention it, so I'm going to let you talk, but he talked about the various players and how they were focusing in on. He said that the number one player they were most scared of. I thought it was interesting, and who he said that was.
Jamal Shedd. Shedd being the head of the Snake. And he credited Logan Johnson for the defense on Jamal Shedd. Jarris Walker was number two, or two of the three, because Jarris's skill set, 5-star reputation, they wanted to limit his scoring, and they did that. So two of the three out of Shedd, Sasser, really all three of them, really, they did a good job containing. The one person they couldn't contain or slow down was Juwan Roberts. So they accomplished most of their scouting report because they made it difficult for Shedd, Sasser, and Jarris Walker to score points. So that's helped in the game being low scoring. He also said a comment that a lot of folks may not realize, that regarding this Battleground 2K22, Nobody wanted to play Houston. The Cougs agreed to participate in this event probably June, July. No one wanted to play Houston in this event until St. Mary's agreed to it in August, almost at the end of their non-conference schedule as like the final game on the non-conference schedule, because nobody wanted to play the Cougs in this event. So, but he was very complimentary of playing the Cougs defensively. He believes it'll help them get better as the season progresses. He has a very high respect for the program and the job Kelvin Sampson has done at Houston.
And to add on to your point, Kris, he said, let the team wanted to know what they said. Let's go see what the best team in the country looks like, and they got that and more. And he said when I asked him what was just the toughest challenge about facing this Houston team, and he said heading into the game, the biggest concern he had is they just didn't know how they were going to score against this Houston team because they're just that good defensively. And he mentioned that Kent State game where they only scored 49 points and they still found a way to grind out the victory, which was a week ago. And he mentioned it. Kent State is a good team. He kind of sounded like
and he
Kelvin
said
Sampson.
he did say that Kent State is a good team, and they only scored 44 points against Houston. So he said that.
Mm-hmm. And down, Justin, I'll toss it over to you guys.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear him say Jamal Shead was on top of that scouting report, because when we kind of mentioned that this team is going to go as far as Jamal goes, he's really our only true point guard, particularly how Kelvin Sampson likes to run the team through a pass-first point guard. And so, but also that's why I complimented Marcus so well, because he led the team in assists tonight with 4, and I'm just seeing his maturation as point guard with the ball in his hands and ability to see the floor and make plays. He did an exceptional job at that, and that's part of his development, because as he goes forward to the next level, he's going to have the ball more in his hands. The floor is going to be spread more. He's going to play a lot more in pick and roll and have the responsibility of making plays for others, but not really surprised with that at all. And also with Jarris, I think it's just freshman woes. I mean, I definitely can understand what Coach Sampson wants him to have that dog mentality, in the sense of, I know I'm better than you, and just play like it. Whether he makes or misses a shot, you can live with missed shots. But what you can't live with is someone not really being aggressive or being assertive. And oftentimes I don't see him looking for his shot. I think to start the game, they isolated him at maybe the top of the key. He made a move, missed the shot, but it's a good move. And that's what I want to see more from him, just being assertive, being aggressive, to looking to be better than the player that's guarding him. I mean, and that's really, I'm sure, what Coach Sampson wants to see as well. Him to be aggressive, be assertive, and do all little things. I mean, he's playing good defense. He's rebounding okay. I mean, he can rebound better. So I'm not going to say he's doing a good job rebounding. I would say he's doing a good job rebounding, in my opinion. I think he can do better. And Coach Sampson, that's on him to hold him to a higher standard. But I think for the main thing for Jarris, I want to see him to be more aggressive, more assertive, and look to dominate.
Well, down you. I mean, Keenan Hadnot, who's one of our viewers on YouTube, he said after he said he went back to watch his games in high school, he played in the paint. It seems like he's measuring his shot too much. And then John Len on YouTube also said Jarris needs some. Jarris says that he needs some time on the bench in regards to Jarris Walker. He'd rather see JVA start and see if that motivates Jarris. I don't know if I could go there at that point. I think in particular, I think it's just a learning curve. And Kelvin Sampson has mentioned it throughout in the past in regards to Jarris Walker. He said in high school, it's an adjustment period just in terms of how much they ask from players, and in terms in particular the effort level that they have to give on every single play. And they're not even a month into the season yet. They're barely 8 games into this 2022-23 season, and that's still something that I can imagine it's still something that Jarris Walker has to adjust to.
He's got to buy into the culture. He's got to succumb to the culture. And 8 games into it, he's not there yet. Probably neither is Terrence Arsenault. We can, guys can say a lot, but until you experience it, game in, game out, the culture and what Coach Sampson demands of you every practice, every game, That's hard to live up to until you get used to it and do it and experience it. 8 games in, they're not there yet. Let's give them
Emphasis,
at 18 games in the season rather than 8 games in the season.
and I did want to point out emphasis on demands because it is a non-negotiable for this team. And it is something that Kris, you were alluding to throughout the night. Whenever Jarrett Walker would make a sticker, there was something that Calvin Sampson didn't see. He was quick to one. He was certainly going to let Jarrett Walker know about it. He was quick to make the move, and I think that's still something that, like you said, Kris, as the season progresses, we're going to continue to see that steady improvement. But it is an adjustment period, and when you look at the stat sheet, that's going to be the biggest thing that people take away. He only had 2 points, 1 of 7 shooting, and I think the biggest thing is only 20 minutes for Houston, and it's going to be interesting to see how that progresses because, like I did say, it is a non-negotiable, and until he picks it up and you see that improvement, I mean, Kelvin Sampson's not going to give him any special treatment just because of how highly touted he was in high school, and we've already seen that.
And let me say this. He only played 20 minutes also because Reggie Chaney played so well. Reggie was active on defense with his hands, his hustle. He got some tip-ins. He was what Jarris is not yet. Okay, Reggie has been in the program longer. He knows what's expected of him, and he's healthier this year too. Reggie's hands, he's got 2 healthy hands now, 2 healthy knees. He's quicker than he was last year. I think at any point last season, that help block to steal the win in the game in the last few seconds, he could have done it last year. So it's good that if Jarris is not there yet, Coach can rely on Reggie Chaney. Reggie, go give him what you can. Yes, sir, Coach, no problem. I got you.
That block in particular, that was impressive because that was with already 5 seconds winding down on the clock. Houston was up 5. And it looked like they were just going to give the layup. If that's any other team, it's easy. They just let the layup, don't try to foul, and then inbound it and shoot the free throws. But Reggie Chaney challenged, contested that shot. He glassed. Not only did he glass it, but Houston was able to essentially run out the clock after that. So it just goes to show, even with the time winding down, Houston's defense, it's something that it's just instilled in their DNA because they didn't give up an easy basket as you would expect. Now, Justin, on that note, I did one of the questions, one of the things that we are going to start doing, the question of the night. For those of us watching, or for those of you watching on YouTube live, the question of the night is, what was your biggest takeaway from tonight's win by Houston over St. Mary's? If you are either watching the replay or the audio-only platforms on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you may be, wherever you get Potsdam and Jammer, you may be listening to Let's Rage Coogs, sponsored by or presented by the Saxenian Family. Be sure to add us on Twitter, whether it's at the HRR Review, the HRRE View. Was that correct, Kris? Or at Pod Slam and Jam at PAWDSLAMAJAMA. Be sure to ask for those of you that are now watching live. Question of the night: what was your biggest takeaway from tonight's win by Houston over St. Mary's? Because we do want to hear from you. Jerry2968 on YouTube watching us live says our ability to find a way to win when we didn't shoot the ball well is even better this year. Which I'm gonna toss it over to you, Justin. What has stood out from your perspective early on, 8 games into the season for this Houston Cougars team, and what might be one of the biggest takeaways you had about this game in Turkey?
Just overall, their defense, despite not shooting the ball well and finding a way to win. I mean, a lot of teams, the way with the Cougar shot tonight, don't win. And it's just their ability, the defense, to pull together, hold St. Mary's to 39% shooting. Not a lot of the teams win with the way the Cougars shot. And the Cougars, with how good their defense is, holding St. Mary's, under 50 points. I mean, that's just about all there is to it.
And Kelvin mentioned it when it comes to their identity. He said that's the reason why teams, when you get 2 good defensive teams, going back to what he said about St. Mary's and just how he described this game, he compared it once again. He went back to the Elite 8 game against Villanova, and he said where you get to 2 programs that are such at a high level when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, you're going to get these games. When it was last year, well, obviously we know how that game turned out. Well, it's the final score 50-44 in favor of Villanova. And then even going back last week when they played Kent State 49-44, and even again tonight when it was just 53-48, when you get those strong defensive-minded teams, you have to gut out a way to win. And I think that's something where going back to specifically when he started at the beginning of his availability, how much praise he had for Reggie Chaney because he's one of those players that excels in this type of game. Being able to have players like that, one, to have experience, and two, they can actually win and make winning plays in that type of game is crucial for Houston. Jerry 2968 also said defense, rebounding, taking care of the ball works in any arena and against any style of play. That sounds just like Kelvin Sampson right there in that aspect. Henry Sandoval is sad because Houston didn't spread the 5-5 hit. So, Henry. But as we start to wind things down, Kris, I'm going to toss it over to you. You can take on the question of the night or just anything in regards that we might not have touched on from post-game availability. Kelvin Sampson or Randy Bennett had said after the game.
I want to mention something about Logan Johnson from St. Mary's. A very, very good defensive player. I think he knows the Cougar system because of his time at Cincinnati playing under Mick Cronin. So he's been against UH backcourts. So he knew the scouting report. So I think that helped him have an edge defensively. So he knew what the Cougars were running. So that's a salute to him, credit to him and his defensive skill set. He's a very good defensive guard. Coach Sampson touched on that and how St. Mary's really defended the guards on the perimeter very well. So the Cougs have things to work on and improve. Coach Sampson once again said Houston is not the number one team in the country in terms of being the best team in the country. The number one because they're ranked so high preseason, the teams in front of them lost. That's why they're number one right now. They'll lose at some point this season. He doesn't care about number one. He said it. He kind of said it, yes.
He said it multiple times.
That he cares. Then he said, no, I really don't care, guys. I really don't care. Because right now, it's December 4th. It's good for the fans and marketing. Justin, I'm going to say it to you so you can hear it if you haven't heard it already. The only time I really care about the Cougs being number one is the last game of this season. If the Cougs are number one after that, then I'll act ignorant and be on the court acting a fool because that means championship. But until then, whatever.
And I think the funny thing about that too is that Jawan Roberts was asked about. I'm not sure who that was. That was a local media here from Dallas area. It might be national. But they asked Roberts if the team is aware that they're the first team to be ranked number one since the 5 Slamma Jamma days. And Jawan, he kind of glanced over at Kelvin Sampson. He started laughing before he answered, and he kind of echoed Kelvin Sampson's sentiments. Dayon, I'm gonna toss it over to you as we lose Kris because he has to go find parking at Dickies Arena. We're gonna start to wind things up. Dayon, I'll toss it over to you. Just overall, anything that we might not have touched on our players specifically, or what was kind of your biggest takeaway from tonight's win by Houston over St. Mary's?
I mean, I know I mentioned it already a few times, but just Marcus Sasser playmaking ability. I think along with his ability to finish, but not only that, his ability to make plays is something that is going to bode well for this team going forward. And I think something that we didn't mention about Jarris is I think a lot of teams do have him high on their scouting report, so they're putting more of an emphasis on trying to stop him and not allow him to get going because Houston is such a guard-driven team. You add him to the mix is going to make them even tougher to start. So I think that's something he's having to adjust to as well is these teams putting a scouting report on him and trying to stop him. And so it's only 8 games in. I know he's going to continue to develop. So I'm not really too much worried about him. I think Marcus' ability – really his development. I mean, he's just getting better all the way around his game, from finishing in the paint, creating off the dribble, not only settling for the 3. And so I'm really, really impressed with his steady development in his all-around basketball game. Then defensively, with Jamal Shead. I mean, he was lights out defensively. The way he guards the ball, put pressures on defense, and his speed sets them up. He not only controls the tempo of the game with the ball in his hands, but also on the defensive end, the way he speeds the other guards up and make them play at a more frantic, faster pace or give the ball up when they don't want to.
Absolutely. And going back to the first half, there was a play when St. Mary's tried to St. Mary's player, I can't remember who it was, tried to make a pass. Jamal deflected it, and then it ended up being back in the hands of that St. Mary's player. Immediately, Jamal starts clapping. He starts getting hyped. That just goes to show where, and just overall for the team, what fuels them, and that's really being able to make plays on the defensive side of the ball. Every time they get a big stop, every time they make a big play on defense, you can hear their bench audibly, cheering in joy when they do get one of those plays. And it just goes back to the Houston Cougars culture: defense, rebounding, and taking care of the ball. Those are three very important pillars among the Houston Cougars basketball program. But as we start to wind things down, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors. First and foremost, our primary sponsor. This is Let's Rage Coogs. You're watching and or listening to Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. Let's Rage Coogs, the unofficial Houston postgame show covering your football and men's basketball team. And on that note, we do want to give a shout out to Hoop and Holler, the Houston Cougars Micro Collective, the entity behind the Star Pizza commercials, just like you see the Sack app, the Anthony Jones Star Pizza commercials. Perfect segue into our second sponsor, Star Pizza, Houston's best pizza since 1976. Also want to give a shout out to BB's, the home of Texas Orleans cooking, with multiple locations across the Houston area. Be sure to make BB's a stop during your holiday plans, or even during the week. If you are tired of cooking, be sure to stop by BB's and pick up a hot meal from them, a Texas Orleans meal from them. Be sure to follow them on social media at BB's Texas Orleans on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also want to give a shout out to Challenge Office Products. Be sure to contact them at 713-644-4007. Once again, that's 713-644-4007. And last but not least, the Fritz Kennel, the family-owned and operated business that specializes in dog and cat boarding, daycare, and bathing. Be sure to pay them a visit at 9513 Yuppendale Drive in Houston. Their phone number is 713-464-9852. Now, I do have one clip. I'm not going to play all of it, but do want to toss it over to Randy Bennett and just get a glimpse of what he had to say post-game following Houston's victory over St. Mary's.
They couldn't find a team to play this game. And the purpose for us was, let's go see what the best looks like. And I think we have enough young guys, 4 freshmen out of 10 guys. And this team, I thought we could handle it. We wanted to see them. We wanted to play against them. There's a ton of respect for their program. Everybody in the country does. They're sitting on a good year. They had a lot coming back. Sasser and all the other guys. So we wanted to play them. We wanted to get on the court with them. It's so hard to get games against these teams. I know Kelvin to play it. He don't play anybody. So that was the goal. And I would say it met what we were trying to get. And we got to see a really good defensive team. It's really pretty, very right. It is good for us. And it's not good to lose, and we didn't want to come out here and lose, but it's what we needed. And I wish we came out here 8-0. I thought we should have, but that's how it works sometimes. And so I think it'll make us better. It'll make us better in December, January, February, and March. So that's why we did it. And then good game. They're good. They're tough. We exposed us, which we've been exposed. Offensively, we have to get a lot better there. But we had 17 turnovers. Luckily, we didn't let them turn them into transition, and were able to stay in the game.
So there you heard high praise in regards to Houston. He said we wanted to go play number one team and compare it. He says this is a game that's going to make them better as the season progresses, which again just goes to show which across the country and how high of regard coaches from across the nation have for this Houston Cougars program and what Kelvin Sampson has established. Now, we mentioned that Kelvin Sampson doesn't care about being that number one team, but certainly the respect is there from coaches, fellow peers across the country, and it goes to show again, once again, where the program is at this point, respectively, not only in the season, but what Kelvin Sampson has been able to create.
Without a doubt, man. It stood out to me because we heard Coach Sampson talk about it in the offseason about being hard to find games and how in years past people would want to play Houston. And just to hear from the opposing coach and how kind of solidifying what Coach Sampson said is like, wow. But yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you want to play Houston in December? And when, like the coach just said, it's going to make you better going forward in your season because you're not going to be able to really see teams as good defensively. So they're going to highlight your weaknesses early and allow you to practice them and strengthen them as the season goes on. So shout out to that coach, man. He had his team well prepared. They definitely fought really hard and had a chance to win the game.
And just think at one point, a few years ago, Houston was that team that wanted to play better teams to get better during the season. And now a team like St. Mary's to get their team experience, which will help them get better later on in the season.
And a kind of a show of full circle where the program is and at the high level that they currently are, which I know Kris is no longer with us on the show, but what he said, enjoy these moments because they don't last forever, and it's certainly a rare air where the current Houston Cougars program is, again, just in where they are across the nation and the high regard that fellow peers have for Kelvin Sampson, which has been able to establish here for the Houston Cougars. But we're going to start to wrap things up. We'll bring up our sponsors again because I bet you were kind of lost into a segment. But once again, big shout out to every single one: Hoop and Holler, Star Pizza, BB's, Challenge Office of Products, and Fritz Kennel for being a sponsor on today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. The Saxenian Family is going to be the primary sponsor for Let's Rage Coogs throughout the entire men's basketball regular season and into the American Athletic Conference tournament. Once again, the final score from Fort Worth, Texas, as we have the salsa music playing in the background. You were able to hear a few people singing as well. But final score: number 1 Houston defeats St. Mary's, California, the West Coast Conference, 53-48. Once again, the final score 53-48. Jawan Roberts led Houston with 15 points, 8 rebounds. Marcus Sasser was second in scoring with 13 points. He added 4 assists. He also had 1 rebound in regards to his injury. If you're just joining us or didn't catch it at the beginning of the show, he did not finish the game. And what Kelvin Sampson said was he had popped, his shoulder had ended up popping out. It got popped back in. They don't expect that to be a long-term issue going forward for Marcus Sasser and the men's basketball program. Jamal Shedd had 6 points on 2 of 12 shooting, but like Dayon mentioned, brought a lot of intensity, a lot of effort on the defensive end. One player that we didn't talk about a lot in this show, but Roman Mark, he also brought it defensively. He had a good he was very, very strong. His on-ball defense was very strong in this game. In this outing, and there was one in particular that sticks out. He forced the steal, and it led to Marcus Sasser fast break layup. So Tremont Mark, we didn't talk about him a lot, but he was strong defensively for the Cougars as well. And on the offensive side, he did have 7 points, 3 of their shooting. He had 2 rebounds and an assist. And Reggie Chaney came in with 8 points and 4 rebounds for Houston. And that's pretty much going to do it. Dayon, I'll toss it over to you. Where can people find you and anything else you'd like to add before we close out?
You can find him on all social media platforms. Dayon Dunlap. Glad to be a part of this rising show as we continue to grow. We're getting bigger and bigger. And who knows, we're going to start having some special guests soon join us on some of these post-game shows. You can't end any show without saying, go Cougs.
I like that teaser right there. Just before we close out, where can people find you?
Y'all can find me at J Barbosa PXP on Twitter.
And on that note, I do want to bring a comment. Nalvin Ali, how long will Sasser be out? Again, he said it's not expected to be a long-term issue, at least not after today. That's currently what we've been told. That's what Kelvin Sampson said after the game. Not sure if he will miss some time. He will probably be sore tomorrow, but that's going to be something that we'll continue to see as we go. But as of now, Kelvin Thompson said he doesn't expect that to be a long-term issue. We're not sure if he might miss Tuesday's game. That will be seen. The team will be off. It's already Sunday. We're hitting 1 o'clock in the morning in Central Time Zone, so they'll be off on Sunday. They'll be back on Monday, so there'll probably be an update then. And like you said, they're certainly going to need them next Saturday when they take on Alabama in that highly touted rematch. Let's get the final score. Number 1 Houston Cougars defeat St. Mary's 53-48. This was Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. Thank you for each and every single one of you that tuned in live, or if you're catching the replay or audio only platform, audio only versions on our platforms. Thank you as well for supporting us, and we'll see you next time. The Houston Cougars return to action Tuesday, December 6th, 7 p.m. inside the Fertitta Center against North Florida. One more pit stop before they have to take on Alabama next Saturday. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.
Go Cougs.